vision really emerged when we started Dream a Dream about 11 years back. Dream a Dream was started in 1999 by a group of 12 people. Most of us were just out of college, getting into our first jobs, corporate careers. None of us came from a social sector background. But all of us had been through some personal journey around wanting to do something for the community around us. Each of us had a certain urge, a certain need to give back to the community. No idea what we wanted to do. So we just started off through common friends. The 12 of us met at one person's garage and said, okay, let's just start. And then we met up with some senior person in the sector as a mentor who said, hey, there's a shelter home for HIV positive children. Why don't you go visit them? We said, okay, let's do that. So Sunday morning, 12 of us on our bikes and cars, whatever we had, landed up at this shelter home for HIV positive children. No clue about what we could do. Like could we touch them, could we hug them, could we play with them, what is possible, what's not possible. We didn't know too much about HIV itself, just a few things that we read on Google, but that's about it. Landed up there, and the children had already been told that there's a bunch of uncles and aunties coming to take you out for a picnic. By the time we parked our vehicles, we had this group of children just running towards us. Someone tugging at our shirt, someone pulling at our hair and saying, who are you, what's your name, where are we going today? Just sheer excitement. And in those few seconds of interaction, all the doubts that we had about interacting with a group of HIV positive children went away in those few seconds. And we suddenly realized that the children that we are now interacting with are no different from children in our homes, my nephews and nieces. If we put these children in a public space, no one will be able to make a difference between who's a mainstream child and who's a child who's affected with HIV. And then why are they isolated? Why are they kept in this shelter home and no one comes to interact with them? No one spends time with them, no one holds them or plays with them. And why we thought it was all right. So for us as a group of volunteers then, that was the first transformation that happened. That was the first time we actually broke our own prejudices and mindsets that we had against HIV affected people. My change experience really started when I got a chance to go on an exchange program to Finland. Just after college, I had joined my first corporate job at Xerox and I got a chance to go to Finland on an exchange program. Landed in Finland and suddenly realized that most of Scandinavia works on a very strong welfare system, social welfare system. So there's very high dignity of labor and the quality of life, irrespective of what you do and what background you come from, for everyone in the population is quite high. Of course, the key difference is Finland has a population of 5 million people, the whole country, and Bangalore has a population of almost 9 million people now. So I made friends with a girl who had just volunteered in Rajasthan and come back. And she used to work in a bar in the evenings to pay for her education. And I almost checked myself, saying, hey, how could I be friends with someone who works in a bar, and to a girl who works in a bar? Would I do that back in India? How many of us can say that, okay, we've gone into a local bar and made friends with a girl who works there? How many of us have actually seen a girl work there? So my prejudices and my upbringing started playing out there. And I realized that, okay, here's someone who's got very high dignity of labor. She's very proud of her work and she's actually working to pay for her education. Okay, and we became great friends. I immediately started questioning, saying, why don't we respect and acknowledge dignity of labor in our country? Why do we mistreat domestic workers, drivers, waiters in restaurants? They're almost invisible in our life. How many times have I gone to a restaurant and actually had a normal chat with a waiter and found out what their name is and who their family is? Never. So then I decided that I want to do something about the whole idea of dignity of labor in India. So I came back, and for me that was my personal journey to start Dream a Dream. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because it's very closely interlinked to the vision of Dream a Dream of sensitizing the community through active volunteering. So we started building our vision around empowering children with life skills. And we said we could empower children as much as we want. Pick up children from urban slum communities, give them all the right kind of opportunities, give them the skills. They turn 18, 19, they come to a place where maybe you're the employer and you're sitting for an interview. And I am this young kid from the slum who's been empowered and come to you for an interview. The minute you find out that, I've come from a slum, the first thought that goes in your mind is what? Will he be trustworthy? Why should I hire him? I might have all the skills, but will he be trustworthy? So empowerment will fail completely if we don't build a sensitive community around us, which is where the volunteering piece came in, which is where the first time when we met HIV positive children, the transformation that we saw that happened within us. That was the first time I actually looked at a HIV positive child and said, hey, we could be friends as equals. There was no power equation there of, I am here to help you. What those children really did was help me. But they helped me become more humane. So we say, until and unless we build a more sensitive community around us, empowerment is actually going to fail. Because every time this young adult from Dream a Dream who's empowered with all the skills and opportunities goes for a job interview, and in the eyes of the employer, if they see discrimination, if they see that I can't trust this young person, they're going to jump back onto the streets and go back into the space of crime and abuse and violence. So for us, actually building a more sensitive community is part of the core vision of the organization. The tool to do that, we found, was volunteering. And the reason that happened is because when we started volunteering with Dream a Dream, we got transformed. So I moved to Bombay to work with an investment bank while Dream a Dream was taking its first few steps. And by then I had more or less taken a choice that I want to move into the social sector. But I said, okay, I'm 21. I really need to understand the social sector before I make the move. So I started volunteering with organizations. This was the first time I picked up 3-4 organizations and said, I just want to go spend time with children there. And I believe today that was the best thing that I did in my journey of learning. So many a times, for example, when you look at kids on the street begging, we've done things like shoot them away, pulled up the window of our cars, ignored them, looked away. Even I've heard, when I've gone out with friends, I've even heard saying, I'm going to call the police, I'm going to report you, I'm going to beat you up. Where does that come from? Where does so much discrimination come from? And I realized for me, a lot of it came from guilt. My own guilt that I couldn't do anything about it. It came from that space of that I was helpless. And that anger that came from that helplessness is what I showed to that kid. But then I realized, okay, I really don't want to give money to the kid. But can I acknowledge the presence of this other human being in this space? So if you just look at that kid, smile at them, touch them and say, hey, I'm not going to give you money. Thank you. You walk away. But what you're left with, at least a feeling of acknowledgement. So we might not be in that space of actually being able to solve the problem yet. But at least we can be in a space of sensitivity. Now this was one of my biggest learnings when I started volunteering in Mumbai. But it really takes us to go into their space, acknowledge their presence, appreciate them, accept them for who they are. And only then the change process can start. What has my upbringing been? My upbringing has been not being allowed to play with kids on the street because my mom used to tell me they're bad kids, they'll spoil you. My upbringing has been that on festivals I used to be given 10 rupees And this domestic worker who had actually taken care of me for 10-15 years, of my grandma's age, used to stand in front of me with folded hands, and I used to give her 10 rupees, and my mother used to say, give her 10 rupees. And I used to wonder why. Why is someone older than me who's actually taking care of me standing in front of me with folded hands? But that's the space we've grown up in. And it really took me to question those spaces, question those mindsets and prejudices before the journey of change making started. So until and unless we continue to live in this space of this is how things are, the journey from volunteer to change making is not going to happen. And I'm going to stop here.